Hi guys, my name is Will from Twin Peaks Fly Fishing, and in this episode I wanted to talk to you about single-handed lines and how to go about making the decision of which line to go for to put on your rod. I'm sure we've all been in the same boat before where we've just bought a brand spanking new rod, we've got a new reel, we're really excited to go, and we need to choose a line. And then we go into the fly shop or we go into the web shop online, and we're faced with a choice of 30, 40, maybe 50 lines across multiple brands, all claiming that they do different things. And we've got to try and siphon this down and try and make an informed decision on the best line for that rod and application that you'll be using it for most of the time. So I want to just take you through my thought process and what I'm thinking when I'm deciding which single-handed line to go for my fishing applications. The first thing I'm thinking about is head length, and there's a very good rule of thumb: the head length wants to match the size of water that you're fishing. So if you're fishing small rivers or spring creeks, you want to go for a shorter head. If you want to be fishing medium or large size rivers, you want to go for a slightly longer head. Likewise, if you're fishing from still water or big reservoirs, or maybe you're fishing in the coast and you've got lots of space around you, you might want a much longer head. So getting that head length relative to the size of water you're fishing is a really good starting point. Single-handed fly lines can come in various different lengths, from around 6 meters up to about 21 meters. So the other thing I'm thinking about the length is my ability and how long I have been fishing for. If I'm relatively new to the sport, or I've just been doing it for a little while, then I'd be erring on the size of the shorter to the medium length heads. The longer headed lines is going to make it slightly more difficult. It means you've got to manage more line out at the end of the rod, which generally means you're going to need to create a little bit more line speed to be able to manage that line, but I'll get into that a little bit later. So if you're just starting out, slightly shorter or medium head length. If you've been doing it for quite a while and you want to sort of take a step up, maybe go for the slightly longer heads. So I'll just discuss a little bit about, I've just got 6 single-handed 7-weight lines in front of me here. They're all rated for a 7, so they would all work on this rod. And I'm just going to discuss the different applications that I personally use each of these lines for. So if I start with the Opti Drift, okay, this is the shortest head, coming in around 6.7 meters. For me, this is my small trout water line, okay, for the likes of the River Don, the Devon, smaller spring creeks. This is the line where often I don't have a lot of space around me. In the summer, the rivers can be very overgrown and there's not much casting space at all. It's got a short, compact head, allowing me to load that rod nice and quickly and easily. It will spay cast really well. Really good for casting clink and dinks, heavy tungsten nymphs. If I need to get down a little bit. Equally, it's going to be good for streamers. If I don't have much space around me, I can make one back cast back, and I can kind of place my back cast in amongst the trees and wherever I've got a gap, and I'll be able to make a cast forward without much force casting needed at all. So for me, this is my sort of smaller river line that I really trust, and I'm using this an awful lot at the moment. Taking a step up to the next length, okay, the Octave Flex is slightly longer, coming in at about 9.1 meters. This is a really nice all-rounder, anywhere between kind of 8.5 to 9.5 meters. That's going to be a really nice length head to begin with. This is the line that I would teach with, especially with novices. It's not a very long line, so we're going to be able to manage that amount of line out of the end of the rod very easily. But it's a little bit longer that we can manage the false cast. Okay, we're going to get quite nice presentation. It's going to spay cast easily. It's good for still waters, relatively smaller still waters. Our local still water fisheries, this is ideal for, and probably one of the best sellers actually. So anything around this is a good all-rounder. If we go up again, the Opti Stillwater, this has probably been one of the most popular of the loop lines in the single-handed range. Slightly longer, this is coming in at 10.2 meters. This is, once we get to about this length, I'm starting to think a little bit more about presentation now. The slightly longer line is going to give me a better presentation at distance, okay? If I'm fishing on a still water, it's flat, calm, presentation is key. So Opti still water is a really, really nice one for the reservoirs, slightly medium to larger size rivers and lakes as well. If we go up again, we've got the Octave Flex long. Okay, so this comes in at 11.9, 12 meters. So this is definitely a little bit on the longer side. By no means a long-bellied line. Okay, it's just on the longer side. It's going to be nice, and it's going to need a certain ability of casting. Okay, because we're going to have to manage a lot more line out at the end of the rod to be able to get the rod loading effectively with the amount of weight needed to load that rod efficiently. But I really like this with a slightly elongated rear taper. It means I can handle more line in the air, and I'm going to get really nice long presentation cast at distance. So if I'm trying to, if I'm fishing on a fairly large still water, or let's say I've got lots of space around me and I want to present that team of buzzers or that dry fly at distance delicately, this is probably the line I'm going to go for. But again, the longer headed the line, the casting ability needs to be a little bit higher. And then this one, this is actually the salmon and sea trout dry fly line. Real favourite of mine. I took this to Iceland last year. It's 11.6 meters long, so again on the longer side. For me, for medium-sized rivers, medium to larger sized rivers, it's been designed for salmon and steelhead in Newfoundland and Labrador. It's got a really compact front taper on it that I'll discuss about a little bit later to be able to turn over dry flies. So that's the head length, the number one thing to think about. If you're new to fly fishing, go on the shorter to the medium head length lines. If you've been doing it a little bit longer and you want to start getting better presentation at distance, go for the slightly longer headed lines. So once I've thought about the head length and I match that to my ability and the size of river that I'm fishing, I'm then starting to think about the taper. And why is the taper very important? Without going into too much detail, the taper, if I show you on here, is the shape of the fly line, okay? And you'll notice that you've got the running line here. You've always got a rear taper that bridges that gap between the running line and the main fly line. And that just stabilizes the line during flight. Then you've got the main mass of the line, okay, where it's thicker. And then you'll notice it tapers down all the way. The reason we have to have this is this allows us to cast a fly and gain presentation. If this was all just one massive fly line with no taper, we'd get loads of energy into it, but it would become a projectile and we'd have no control on how it's presenting the flies. So this essentially allows us to present flies at distance delicately. So what do we need to know about this taper? So we've said that it goes down from thick to thin, okay, and that gives us presentation. So when we think about taper, we want to be thinking about what size of flies that we're casting, okay. If we look at this line here, you'll notice this has got a short, compact front taper, okay? You'll see at this front end, it tapers down very quickly. So this has been designed for casting wind-resistant dry flies like bombers and muddlers at distance. So it's got that short, compact front taper, which is going to turn over these big, bushy dry flies into a headwind with ease, okay? Whereas if we look at this one again, and we compare the two, the Opti Stillwater, which has got a much longer front taper for presentation, you'll notice that it tapers much more gradual, so that's going to give us better presentation at distance. So have a little think about it. Are you mostly fishing streamers out of a drift boat in the States? Then maybe you want to be looking at something like the Opti Drift, nice and short, quite short front taper. It's going to turn them over fairly easily. Are you fishing a team of nymphs or general all-round river fishing lines, clink and dinks, dry flies, then you might be looking for just a middle of the range, a nice gradual front taper on the Opti Flex and the Stillwater as well. And then when you start looking into the presentation lines, they're going to have much more elongated front tapers, which is going to give you that presentation at distance. So that's the next thing to think about. And then finally is the density of the fly line. And generally with the density, I'm thinking about what time of year we're fishing. Am I fishing in early spring or through the winter on the still waters? Generally it's going to be quite cold, so I might want a range of fly lines in a hover or an intermediate in a sink 3, to be able to get depth. Am I going to be pollock fishing from the coast off the rocks where I want to get depth quickly? Or am I going to be mostly floating line fishing in the summer with dry fly? So generally, I'd say floating lines are the most common, and if you want one line just to get started, go for a floating line, and that'll get you going. And you can always put weighted flies on the end. So that's what's going through my head, guys, when I'm thinking about which kind of line I want to put on my rod. Providing you match the line rating to the rod rating, so the line is a rating number 7 to my rod as number 7, all of these lines are going to work on your rod. But they all are designed with specific applications in mind. So that's just have a little think about what kind of fishing are you doing, what's your ability, am I fairly new to it, have I been doing it for a long time and I want to get something different out of my line. And then you can start to break down on what kind of line that you want for your majority of fishing applications. I hope that was helpful. Any questions, please feel free to send a message via any of the social media streams, and we'd be more than happy to answer either through a video or on the message. Take care, folks, and I'll see you soon.